Hey everyone, so in this video I just wanted to take a few minutes and talk about some of the various finishing touches that I'm putting onto the game, and then we can also briefly talk about what I refer to as the Unity look and trying to eliminate the Unity look. And that really occurs when developers, leave default assets in the game, particularly assets that are very evident and could have been easily replaced. One of the most notable examples of that are probably buttons, because buttons are great, they work easily, but they have default assets that I'm not sure if people know can be removed. So let's go over to our upgrade screen. Okay. Now, if you've been watching these tutorials, you'll notice that this button looks different. It used to look more like this. So game object, UI, button. Let's move this down. Let's increase the height. And then we go to the text object because a button is actually two objects. It's a button and a text object, and it said something like upgrade. So this is what it looked like in a previous video. The problem is these are all default assets. And so you start to recognize that when you watch a lot of different, say, playthroughs of games, particularly like some YouTubers will do these 3-in-1, horror videos, and some of the games are just really terrible. Now, there are games out there that were made for like game jams and things like that. And so they're forced to use default assets. They're forced to only make a game like in 1 or 2 days. So I'm not trying to criticize them. I'm talking about when you have a legitimate commercial project, you really should be taking the time and effort to, at the end, remove those default assets. They're great for the new user experience. In this case, the user is the programmer, the designer, but you eventually want to eliminate them. So they're good for proof of concept, they're good there for testing, but you really don't want them in the final product. And I'm sure you've probably seen games like that where it has the default buttons and it kind of takes you out of the experience because you're like, oh, I've seen this somewhere before. And sometimes it's the little things that make your game stick with people, like little things like in Silent Hill, that little symbol that would show up when you were saving your game and things like that. So if you can try to just do those little attention to details, it makes a difference. It is a little bit challenging because you're putting a lot more effort to change something that really doesn't affect the functionality. It only affects the visuals, but you know, it is a video game. It is a visual game. So try to pay attention to that kind of detail, and it will make a difference because you don't want to take your player out of the experience. You don't want them to say, oh, I've seen this, I've seen that. So what do we do? Well, as I said, a button is actually two objects. So you can delete that text object. And then for button, there's an image component, and this is independent of the functionality of the button. So you can change the image without actually affecting the button. So how do you do that? Well, you draw an image in an external paint program. I use Anime Studio. I believe it's now been renamed to Moho or something like that. You could use MS Paint if you want, though. And you just draw a 2D image. And that's right here. So what I did is after you draw the image and you save it to the folder where you have your Unity project, make sure you change the texture type to 2D sprite in UI, at least for this. If you're using it as a material, then you want to leave it as default or maybe change it to one of the other ones. But for this case, you want it to be sprite 2D UI. Okay. So we're going to click on the button. We're going to take that image and let's try that again. Click on the button, take the image, just drag it where's the source image, and just like that, you now have your own unique button. Does it look spectacular? No, I just made it as a quick demonstration for this tutorial. I like the overall theme since it deals with, you have like these robots, these mechas that you're controlling, so you want it to have kind of a tech theme. So I'll probably work on this a little bit more, but it removes the default image, okay? It removes again, those default assets that come with it, and it gives your game its own personality. Same thing for the text. This is just a UI text object, so I could actually click on it. So that's just game object, UI, text. As you can see, again, it just uses plain old Arial. So what I'm doing is I'm removing these and I'm adding image objects. So again, that's game object, UI, and then that would be image. And that's this. So even though it looks like text, it's actually, see, it has that familiar image component, and it has a source image of PW, which is this. So again, I drew this in an external paint program, saved it to this folder, changed texture type to Sprite 2D UI, and then applied it to the image object. And being an image object, it also makes it easier to apply some additional visual effects. I won't go into that here, but you can do additional things as well. So that's the first part of that. And there's a couple more things I want to mention. So let's go over to our village. I'm not going to save because I just made changes to demonstrate to you. Okay. Now this probably looks a little bit different. What I decided is that, so when the game is playing, you're defending the village, but originally you wouldn't get this. You wouldn't get this scroll. What you would do is you would get this. You would suddenly load in, and then you're defending. And I realized, well, you couldn't really see much of what you're defending. So the idea is, A, this, rather than just being in place, it would instantiate a little bit at a time. So let me show you what I mean. So let's go to, actually, if I open any script, they'll all open. And this uses the cleanup script, which is kind of a all-purpose for deleting and stuff in this particular project. And I don't know why it says prepare in solution. Okay, it stopped. Anyways, so what I did, and this is similar to the way that I handled the player. I said that just to make it easy on me, I had both of the playable units spawn and then delete the one that isn't necessary. So I took the same kind of approach. So if you notice, we'll scroll down. So first of all, this is in the start section. So it happens with the first frame. That way you don't see it happening. And I just said, if the object the script is attached to is named house and we're less than a certain wave, then destroy the object. And as you can see, the wave number just keeps increasing and that the house number also increases. So more and more houses will not be destroyed. So I'm kind of faking it rather than instantiating the houses as they're needed. I've instantiated all of them and then delete the ones I don't need. Again, that is not the best way to do it because it could potentially long-term create memory issues because every time you delete something, that memory has to be freed up. Having said that, this is not a long-running game and that this is not memory intensive, so I'm not concerned about it yet. I might change it in the final version. This is more just talking about the idea. So rather than just having the town fully built, I'm having it appear a little bit at a time. So, and the reason why this goes up by twos is because from a coding point of view, every wave is actually broken up into two waves, and I'm not going to get into why I did that. I think I might have briefly mentioned it when I talked about spawning of enemies, but we'll just run this a couple times. So say current wave, so let's say it's 1. We'll save, and then we run this. You won't see the playable character. So it's an open field. And then you beat it, and then you have the upgrade, and then you do the next wave, and then this is what you see. You now have a house, and the plants have been cleared. I'm not going to do this every time. I just want you to, or should I say, I'm not going to do this for every wave. I just want you to see a few examples. So let's boost this up to say 7. But with every wave, a new building appears. So you got 3 buildings there. We'll do just a couple more. Let's make this like 11. And so now you have a windmill and this grass has been cleared. And then the final thing that you'll notice is that you have cannons here, and this actually does impact functionality. So what happens is I like the idea of a game that keeps adding new functionality. So in the last 3 waves, you will actually get a final attack. So let's see if I can get that to work. So in this case, you both have a visual effect and a functional effect combined. So I think that had to be 23, perhaps? Yes. So you have one cannon there. And so now you have actually one super shot. So if I hit space, kind of like this ground attack. So I'm going to do a visual where you like see the cannon blast and then the ground goes out. And then if you have wave 25, now there's 2 cannons, and now you'll have 2 shots. Now you got 2 shots. Now, no matter how many times I hit the button, it doesn't fire again. And then it does it one more time. I won't do it for the next wave. So that's going to show up towards the end of the game. So again, you have this combination of the visual effect and the functional effect combined. So I thought that was more interesting than just having the town be there. It's like, yeah, you have a town. I think seeing the town be built helps. I think it might make the player care a little bit more in the sense that they're seeing the development, they're seeing the progress. And I say that in so many of my tutorials that I think demonstrating to the player the progress that they're making is incredibly important. I think that's one of the reasons why I don't like roguelikes and roguelites is because depending how they're made, there might not be any progress. It might be permadeath. So you do a run in a dungeon and you lose everything and you have to start from scratch. If you enjoy that type of game, great, more power to you, but it doesn't do it for me because I like that sense of progression and I like to demonstrate that sense of progression. Think of a leveling system. Even when you see games where the leveling system doesn't have any meaningful impact, it's still there to give the player a sense of progression. So I think one of the last things that I'll probably do with this is initially you see an empty field other than plants. I might put like a pile of like lumber here, and what will happen is just as the buildings are being built, the lumber will be decreased. And so like you'll see like lumber and cement and metal and ladders and things like that. And that as the town is being built, that lumber pile will actually decrease. We'll see. We'll see how much effort it takes to do that. I do have some additional assets I haven't used, but at a certain point, if you don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole, because if it turns out that the player doesn't care, then you kind of wasted your time. But I just wanted to again give you an example of that little extra effort you can make to make this more distinctive. So in this game, I wanted the player to see the town being built over time. Maybe it'll give them a greater sense of progress and a greater sense of what they're defending. And that's about it. I don't think I really have anything else I want to talk about. Some of the other effects, like the glow effect, I've already talked about how to do post-processing. I should do an updated video, though, because Unity just made a major change in 2021.1, where they finally have put all the rendering pipelines into one build. You no longer have to do these you no longer have to download Unity and then install a bunch of things. It's going to be built in. So I'm so happy they did that. It's going to make things much easier. So hopefully they're getting away from that modular approach. But yeah, if there's anything else you'd like to see me explain about what I did in this game, just leave a comment, leave a like, and I'll be happy to do that. We're getting towards the, like I said, almost done with the development, hence the name Finishing Touches. And I will have this up on Itch.io pretty soon. Again, the target was the end of March. We're coming up on that. So we'll see if I don't, unless there's some new feature I want to add, and I hope I don't, that I think I finally have a game that I'm happy with, a simple little arcade style shooter. Okay, so I think that should about do it. So if there's any other features you want to see me explain how I did, then just leave a comment and leave a like, and I hope that this video was helpful, and please enjoy the rest of your day.